Welcome to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. Damian Hall, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm all right, thanks, folks. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure, and thank you very much for your time. For those people who maybe haven't heard the name Damian Hall, yeah, there might be a few out there somewhere. Would you mind giving us just a wee bit of a backstory about what, first of all, interested you in running? We'll go on and we'll explore some of the things that you've done and some of the things that you've achieved. But where did the interest to run come from?
Well, you just got me thinking there. Actually, I mean, you might have people tuning in thinking you've got Damian Hill, the racing driver, on the show. They're going to be very disappointed. And if I can ask you a question after this, is that in the introduction music? Is that you singing, John? I've always wondered.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it was.
Did you get that from my talking voice? Did that come across?
Just, yes.
There you go.
I like it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Is it something you've written, or is it some classic that I've overlooked?
No, it was something that was written for us.
It's an original piece by Mr. James Stewart, friend of the show.
James. Oh, I know James. Amazing guy.
Yeah. It's an original piece by James, and James very kindly, I think he maybe thought we needed a wee bit tarting up from what we were doing before. So always in gratitude to James for that. So thank you very much, and thank you for noticing. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. No, I'm a big James. I've never met James in person, but I'm a big fan. Even more so now, and even more so of your singing now. So where were we? Damian Hill. No. How did I get into running? Well, yeah, I would kind of enjoy running at school, but I much preferred running with a football at my feet, I suppose. So I did do some cross-country races and did okay, but it just wasn't encouraged that much, and I wasn't that into it, to be honest. It wasn't that cool. So I forgot about running for about 20 years. And then in 2011, I did the Bath Half. I was just sort of signed up on a whim, really. Wasn't feeling very fit. Played a lot of football in between and a lot of hiking. But yeah, did this half marathon and just loved it. Loved the training, loved the experience on the race day. I suppose, pushing on when it gets uncomfortable and exceeding your expectations, and the banter with the crowds and all of it, really. And yeah, it was soon, I suppose the next year I was doing it again, and then doing my first marathon, which I ran dressed as a toilet. And then my first ultra marathon was that same year, 2012. So I was already, I was a bit naive about how many running events there were. I thought there was just like London and then the Bath Half and the Bristol Half. I should have probably bought a copy of Runner's World, or if your podcast was around then, started listening to that sooner. But yeah, definitely the next year I was well into it, and yeah, did my first ultra marathon, 2012, and loved it even more. I suppose the fact it was out in the hills, and the camaraderie with runners was even better, and then also all those wonderful aid stations that are just like a sort of children's birthday party with the children vacant. I just loved it, and sort of got increasingly carried away from there.
That's maybe one of the best descriptions of an aid station I've ever heard. Like a children's birthday party without the children. Brilliant.
Well, I think it's like cake and Coke, and it just lacked, balloon. I suppose a few balloons. Crisps. I mean, it's what? Yeah, and then later on, I've got two young kids, and you're like, hold on, that's an aid station. When you're preparing their birthday party, that's an aid station. I do find it hard not to dive in and steal their food.
But you did utter the immortal words of you played football at school. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your team?
The Arsenal, and I do have a second team. If I know that's not technically always allowed, but Forest Green Rovers, they happen to be the most sort of ethical club in the world. But I actually played twice for their inaugural youth team in the early 90s. I wasn't good enough to get in, really, but I made two substitute appearances, and this is the absolute peak of my football career. One of those appearances was in a 7 or 8-0 home defeat to Swindon Town. I remember coming on, sliding around in the mud a lot. I'm pretty sure I didn't touch the ball. I was sort of a wide midfielder at the time. That was almost, the highlight of my football career.
Well, it's a bigger highlight than mine. And Forest Green, they I think they broke ground now on a new stadium that's made purely of timber. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, so their owner Dale Vince's, the guy behind Ecotricity, one of the possibly the world's first wind energy companies, and I'm actually going to watch them tonight. I'm going to catch up with a couple of friends, and they've just been relegated from League One, so it's a lovely contrast actually between the Arsenal, who I used to go to loads when I was a lot younger. I'm probably going to only go to one game this season, but Forest Green is like this other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But ethically, they do everything brilliantly. Like, it's a vegan football club, and Dale Vince is very, very involved in sort of trying to push the right agendas wider in the world. But the team is it's a different standard, let's say.
Thank you for sharing that. You couldn't mention football and not us diving into that.
Well, I don't know if I know who you two support.
Well, I support my local team, St Johnstone, who sacked their manager on Sunday, which was the second biggest headline last Sunday. The biggest headline was this fella. So that was that's my team, and John supports a Scottish team also.
I love the fact, Damien, that you called your team the Arsenal. It's not just Arsenal; it's the Arsenal. So I'm a fan of the Celtic. So
Both of them, yeah.
We'll go with that.
Thank you for that, Tierney.
Yeah.
Now, back onto the running. 2012, first marathon and first ultra in 2012. Did I pick that up right? Did I hear you saying you did the marathon dressed as a toilet? Was that
Doesn't everyone?
A choice thing?
Yeah, so it was a charity place for water aid, and you could run dressed as a tap or dressed as a toilet, and obviously I had to raise money, and I thought, well, my mates, they probably aren't going to, even though it's the longest distance they've ever run, I've got the sort of mates who probably aren't going to sponsor me unless I do something a bit stupid. So literally had this sort of toilet get up. There may or may not be some photos around. And yeah, for the first 10 miles, people just shouted, you look a bit flushed, mate. Which the first few times it's quite funny, isn't it? But when you've heard it 6 or 7 times, it was the same one every time. And then of course, near the end, I really needed the toilet, and couldn't find one, and couldn't utilize my own costume for that purposes, and that felt an especially cruel sort of scenario.
I'm imagining in my head at first you're running with like an actual whole sort of portal cubicle, with your arms and legs sticking outside, just a wee gap for it. That would be something. My mates would sponsor me if I did that, but that's not about that. I'm going to do it. And was that London?
Brighton,
okay. And then first ultra, what?
That was the Wall. So I did get sent. I was a journalist, and I did get sent as a sort of magazine story. So it wasn't. They kind of picked it for me. Hadn't heard of it. I don't think I could name an ultra marathon at that stage. So they sent me on that one. I think it was the first year that race had happened. And I did do the 2-day option. I'm not sure if that's still available. So it was 69 miles over 2 days. But then that adds in that massive unknown of how do you feel on the next day, I suppose. Luckily, they did have they had an overnight campsite where you could sort of have massages, and I think I even had a beer. But yeah, it was quite, as it would be, it was quite ouchy. But yeah, just loved the experience. And near the end of it, there's just this moment that has stayed with me ever since, which is like, it finishes in Newcastle, and I was sort of on the suburbs of Newcastle, and I just thought, I can't possibly run anymore. I've got blisters, my muscles have never been this sore, everything aches, I'm tired. So I was walking it in, and I just thought, I can't run. No one could run in this scenario, but I can walk it in, I'm going to finish. And then I saw the bridge, which was the finishing point, and I was running again without even deciding to. I just started running, and I was just still amazed by that moment of my mind just totally changing and overruling the body. Yes, you can run, even though you've told yourself you can't. And I guess that's a lot of what the brilliant book by Alex Hutchinson, Endure, which I imagine a lot of people have read, is all about exactly those things. Does the mind fatigue first, or does the body fatigue first? And it's fascinating. I still don't really have the answer, but that's part of why we do these things, I think, is to try and figure that stuff out.
We've done plenty of research on that exact matter. The Wall, I think it still takes place, doesn't it? That's Carlisle to Newcastle, along roughly the Hadrian's Wall. Yeah, I've got a few mates who have done it, and it's yeah, a fair first effort. And you were either going to, I suppose, hate it or love it, and it was the latter for you. At what point in time were you a member of a run club? Had you already joined a movement by then, shall we call them?
No, at that stage I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know any other. Oh no, I think I knew one other runner in Bath who had run the Bath half sort of 5 or 6 times, who I'd met from my NCT group. You know, like those when you're about to become parents, you join those NCT groups. Yeah. So I think he was the only runner I knew. And yeah, so even after that ultra marathon, I had no running friends. I probably still don't, to be honest. But sometime around the next year, I was like, I want to do more of these. I wanted to get more into this scene, and yeah, it was a lot less on the internet than it is now. Now my next race, what was that? Race to the Stones was my next race. So that was again a sort of a media thing where I was invited. But around that time, later that year, maybe later in May 2013, I used to drive into work into Bath, and I used to see someone running down the street on the pavement, but he wore different kit to other runners. He didn't have like a luminous jacket, and his trainers weren't white, and he had stuff that had OM. It said OM on it. I remember his pack said OM, and he always wore a cap, and he had like 3/4 tights. So he's basically dressed differently to road runners. And I just remember thinking, what does he do? What I want to do what he's doing. Like, it looked exciting. And I actually managed. Our village has a magazine, and he was featured in the magazine around that time. And I was like, right, I've got to, it must have sounded a bit weird when I got in touch, but I found, I managed to get in touch with him and sort of said, I want to go running with you. And his name is Alex Copping. We still run together most weeks. So he hasn't managed to escape me. But he joined me into the Bath Bats, which is, I was very lucky to meet him, really, because they're not a proper club. They're not an official club. They are a group of runners around Bath. There's probably 40 or 50 of us now, who meet less in the summer, actually, because we're the Bats, so we go out at night, you see. But we do regular trail runs, and there's never any sessions or there's no club merchandise, there's no website. It's not quite a secret society, but we always do trail runs that end at a pub, and the sort of chips and ale is more important than the route, really. But through the Bath Bats, I've met all sorts of characters, and yeah, as well as Renee McGregor, Lizzie Wraith, or Lizzie Atkins, as she's now called, is a GB runner, is a member, and Holly Rush has been a member. So there are some very strong runners around here, and then my good friend Tim Laney, who, he's definitely someone who's filled my head full of bad ideas. He's done numerous Dragon's Backs, and he's done Hard Rock and Leadville, and he'd done all the big trail fell running rounds. And yeah, he was a real sort of hero to me at first. He'd done all these big rounds, and even when I suggested, when I sort of would suggest doing something that I was massively underqualified and underprepared for, he would never. What I see now is he would never talk me out of it. He would sort of sit me down and talk me through it, and I'd slowly realised I wasn't quite ready for it. But he was, and all of them, they do ARM every year, and so I felt I'm very lucky. I sort of fell in with the wrong crowd quite quickly.
You'd say kind of found your tribe, as we say.
Yeah,
I think I want to be a bat, and it was beer and chips and stuff like that. Appeals to me.
That part.
Could be a bat.
Isn't it amazing? I could be a far away bat. I could, sorry, wheels are turning. Isn't it amazing though? I think this is probably the only similarity I've got with you, Damian. Apart from, I did have a Mohican last summer as well for the lakes. I did do that. So that was inspired. That was inspired. But
I think it's much better than mine as well.
Thank you very much.
Glad you got rid of it. Glad you got rid of it.
Yeah. But when I started running, I had that same, I don't know if you call it naivety, or in my case, maybe ignorance, but I never knew about all this stuff, all these events that were happening, and it was unbelievable. I mean, now I do have that awareness, and it's kind of hard sometimes to even get into races. All these things, they sell out really, really quickly. And that's probably the boom of the internet and everybody having access to it and smartphones and all that sort of stuff that's maybe increased the popularity of events. And you now move globally. You've been on the continent, done a number of different continents, and experienced running events. Is there? I tell you, actually, I've got 6 questions in my head at the same time.
He's getting there, Damo. He's getting
I'm going
there.
to ask the one I want to ask.
Throw it at me.
I'm going to ask the one I want to ask, and that's about the spine race, because it's the Pennine Way. I've got a bit of a fascination with the Pennine Way, and that's probably because of people like yourself and John Kelly and Jasmine Paris doing extraordinary things there. We'll come on to John Kelly a bit more in a minute, but you were speaking there about doing ultra marathons and speaking to your pal Alex and running. What lit the fire for the long stuff?
Yeah, I mean, straight away, the fascination was, could I go further, I suppose. So the next race was 100K, and I was just fascinated. Well, if 69 miles, but it was over 2 days, so really it was only sort of 34, 35 miles in one go, I suppose. Yeah, just fascinating. Okay, I could do that. Well, could 100K? Wow. Like, could I do that? What does it feel like? I don't know, but I want to try. And then as soon as I'd done that one, later that year, it was my first 100 miles, because I was fascinated in okay, I've gone that far. Can I go even further? And did my first 100 mile of that autumn, the Cotswold Way Century, which is, where I grew up. And so that was really helpful. And I was kind of running home. I was running towards Bath. And by that stage, I'd already signed up for the spine race as well. So that was partly a little bit of serendipity, in that there was someone who I ran some of the Race to the Stones with had signed up for the spine, and I was already aware of it, but that made it sort of, it just seems more possible if you know someone who's done something. It just seems a bit more accessible. It wasn't like, oh, you're doing it so I can do it, but it was like, oh my goodness, you've got the courage to sign up, or maybe I will, and at least we can sort of share kit ideas or something. There was someone else doing it who I knew, makes it a little bit less scary. But I'd already hiked the Pennine Way there by then, and written a guidebook for it. And was very interested in it, and I'd seen the spine race, being sort of advertised, and was quite enchanted by the idea of it, because it just seemed impossible to me. A whole week, doing that in winter, running it, like, just mad. I honestly thought it wasn't really possible. And that first year, I believe there were 3 finishes, I think, out of about 20 starters, and I was following on Twitter, even though back then it was just, 2 updates a day kind of thing. And the next year I followed again, and then the third year, I was in. But that was only my 5th ultra marathon. But I was fascinated in distance, and I can see now, I suppose, even looking back, I don't know how many people would say the same. Maybe lots, maybe not. But stories from my childhood, like, I suppose Scott of Antarctica and Lord of the Rings was one of my favourite ever stories. And that's, 2 little guys with barefoot runners who love a second breakfast, going on an epic journey, getting some vert in near the end. There are stories of endurance. And I realise that is in my head. I've been quite interested in mountaineering down the years as well. But really, the books I loved reading was when things went wrong and it turned into a sort of 2-week survival type thing, and so, some of these events, we're pretty safe usually. There's usually, especially on the spine, we're tracked. There's a whole team of people obsessively watching the trackers, and safety teams dotted, hiding in bushes, really ready to pounce and rescue us if we need. So these things are fairly safe. They're not, obviously not totally safe, but there's reasonable safety. But it's almost, to me, it's like going to have a big adventure, but actually you're a lot safer than if you actually go to Antarctica, I suppose. So that is part of the appeal to it, I think.
Can I quickly ask a question? So that's quite a steep learning curve, shall we say, that you were on. True, 5th ultra marathon, you were doing the spine race. When did the fact that you had a talent for it, when did that twig? Because you said that you hadn't ran really, you'd played football at school, you had 20 years where running was anything. 2012, I'll go and do a half marathon, and 2-3 years later you're doing the spine. when did you realise that actually I'm not bad at this?
Well, I think even in that first one, even when I was very tired, I quite wanted to be competitive. I can't remember if I was in the top quarter or the top third overall. I mean, I wasn't top 10 or even top 20, but then in Race of the Stones I was top 10, but it wasn't, it wasn't. That's what's great about it. It wasn't very competitive. And then in that 100-miler I was third, but it wasn't, it was a new race. It wasn't that competitive. But that really helped, I think. It made me think, oh, well, something about this suits me.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that spine, I was fourth, but I was a long, long, long way behind the winner. But I guess there was a thing sneaking into my head, thinking I really love this, and I'm not terrible at it. Like, I wasn't close to winning any of those things, I loved the training. I loved being out there. It just seemed to really suit me. And I can see now, I mean, I was really into hill walking, and I do multi-day treks. I've done them around the world, and I'll do them whenever I could. And they're not very competitive, of course, but they're big days out in lumps. But then I'd play football as well. And that's the competitive element, I suppose. And that's your speed work, isn't it? So almost throw them together, and ultra running is like almost the perfect combination of the two in my head, or at the time it was.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think if I can go back, I just remembered actually when you were speaking about extremes, or that's what I heard, extremes, and about endurance. And I just remembered about your bendy body experience. Remember that you did the coast to coast, and you did the lean. You arrived with a lean, yes.
Exactly.
And that's reminded me that we spoke to a good friend of yours as well, Dr. Nikki Ligo. We had a chat with Nikki. She was fantastic guest on episode that we had. Speak about that. Was that because of you pushing yourself to extremes that happened?
I must firstly say, I think poor Nikki is far more scarred by that experience than I am, because she is a doctor, a medical doctor, and she's. I'll get more into it in a minute. But I mean, it was potentially lethal what happened, and so I think she feels an undue amount of responsibility when it was absolutely, not her fault at all. But I think she feels she should have spotted it earlier. I'm not totally sure, but there's absolutely no. I just feel sorry for Nikki that I made her feel so bad about that accidentally. But yeah, so we're still not like 100% sure of what happened, but we're very confident I got into a state of hypernatremia, which is it's when your fluids and your salts inside your body are imbalanced. Now, so I did cut my electrolytes out because I had slight tummy issues at one point, and I decided to cut them. And we're not totally sure whether it was the lack of salt or just the amount of liquid overall, which is the issue. It could be both. It could be, but basically, I cut my electrolytes. I'm quite a salty sweater, and I cut my electrolytes. And I always meant to say, "Oh, chuck them back in again now, please," but I forgot. And my team was sort of giving me liquid without electrolytes, I guess, for quite a long time, which is totally my fault. And it was the only thing I've ever done where I wasn't drinking to thirst. I've always drunk to thirst before that and afterwards, and had no problems. Other than, I have had cramps, but that's a separate thing. But I had it in my head, where can I optimize? Where can I improve my performance? And this was going for the record on the Wainwright's Coast to Coast. Where can I improve? And I had 2 or 3 areas in my mind that I could improve on. And one was like, well, I do get dehydrated quite a lot. Maybe I could hydrate better, hydrate optimally, whatever that really means. And so I had a sort of target in mind of like, let's try to get 500 mils in an hour, which doesn't sound loads, does it? But it wasn't. It was quite cool weather. And it was the one time I suppose, drunk more than I needed to. It got quite serious. So basically, my memories are of a bit like feeling drunk, and the lean only came on right at the end, I think. But I was getting increasingly confused and even suspicious of people. And bear in mind, the same people like Nikki and Tim Laney, who I mentioned, have crewed me on other similar things, so they're quite familiar with what I'm like when I'm all messed up. But I was extra messed up this time, and they were getting concerned. So, for example, I tried to take my mid layer off without removing my raincoat. For example, I thought I could take off, which and then I started saying things like, and I'm joking about this, but yeah, it's kind of funny and not funny. But I said at one point about my support runners, I said to Nikki, "Who are these people, and where are they taking me?" And you'd hope, when you're going for a record, you sort of know where you're ultimately aiming for. But I seem to have forgotten, and I lost all interest in the record. Normally, I'm looking at my schedule too much, as Sabrina Vergier has pointed out to me. But normally I'm very on top of what's my time versus the record and the splits, and I had no interest in that anymore. So that's quite telling. And yeah, I just felt a bit drunk, a bit confused about what we're doing, and I'd started to lose my balance. So I started, every time we'd go up steps, I can remember even now the feeling of one of my support runners putting the hand on my back, because I would just start falling backwards. Like, I guess a bit like drunk and losing balance. And then right at the end, I developed this sort of comic tragic lean to one side, which I was sort of aware of, but was making, you even look at the footage now and it's the runners around me look uncomfortable. There's a kind of sense, and part of what threw Nikki was she did say to someone else, why is he leaning? But I had a little bit of tendonitis in my foot, and I'd said to someone else that, it's because I've got a slight injury, like I'm leaning, of course you'd lean that way, right, when you've got an ankle problem. But that kind of threw people off the scent. So Nikki was thinking of scenarios, and then she was given a sort of almost a false reason for what I was doing. But yeah, I don't think I was. Well, I don't know. But that situation can lead to death. So it is worth. I am very happy and very eager to talk about it, so that people don't do the same thing, really. So yeah, drink to thirst, folks. And if in doubt, I would say put some salt in.
Blood in your system with liquid without enough electrolytes in there as well.
And then your cells start to swell, and that would include your brain. So that's partly why you lose. And this is what was very different with Debbie Martin Consani at the end of the spine race. So that was totally different. She had a muscular thing. She was still sort of compos mentis. She was perfectly normal, well, as normal as you are after running the spine. But Debbie's thing was very different to what happened to me, even though it looked like the same. We both had a lean. She had a muscular back issue. Mine was.
How did you recover from that salt imbalance then? Was it a bag of chips?
Yeah, you want to get salt in and you want to stop taking liquid, really. So she did tell people, no more drinks for him for a bit. She was starting to twig. Yeah, she said no more drinks, but we were quite near the end by then. And then later, she got a load, I don't know, it was a load of salty pizza. She sort of made me eat it. She was sort of suspecting what had happened, but by the time we finished, I was making a bit more sense. Like, she got me to sign in the Wainwright's book, I think, for the Coast to Coast. And although my handwriting is terrible, I wrote I don't know what I wrote, but it was slightly cheeky or mischievous or something. And she kind of thought, well, he's not totally gone if he can still make write something humorous. So yeah, there you go. And
so writing down some cheeky shit gave Nikki the confidence that you were coming back. That was cool. I like that. I like that.
Normal.
But sorry, Nikki.
Right, Stephen, where are we going to go next, man? Where are we going to?
I wouldn't mind just taking a jump over to Tennessee, actually, if that's okay, to Frozen Head State Park, which you debuted at. That last month now, or is it earlier this month? It's last month. With your first appearance at the Barkley Marathons, and I think it would be amiss of us, and how recent it is in the memory as well for you, not to just spend a wee bit of time diving in there and getting your take on what it was like. First up, what attracted you over there, or is it that obvious?
I do think it was my friend I mentioned, Alex Copping, who first would have put that idea in my head. It was definitely before that film came out. I think I must have asked him at one point, what are the toughest races? What's the toughest? And he said, And I remember him talking about loops and woods and books, and just remember thinking, that sounds, ridiculous. And then I think the natural instinct, first of all, for a lot of people is to go, that sounds stupid. And then, of course, the idea just stays there and percolates. And but then yeah, you don't know how to get in and stuff, so it was on the back burner for quite a long time. But then yeah, I was lucky that that information came to me, and I guess yeah, I was on the wait list for 2 years. I've been trying to get in for a while. I suppose it's partly just the curiosity of how well could I do there, and just the, you know, there is a certain magic around the event, a certain aura, isn't there? I guess I've been put off before. I guess I've not done many looped. Well, I don't think I've ever done any properly looped things before, and that isn't as appealing as a point to point. Nearly I think all my races have been. Yeah, I love the idea of getting to a place, not just doing what you just did again. So one or two things like that have put me off. But I don't know, just the curiosity over time of, and then seeing friends do it. I've been lucky, I suppose. Yeah, Nikki Spinks and Jasmine, Ian Keith, getting to know John Kelly a bit. Yeah, you just hear more and more snippets, and you hear it more in, I suppose, podcasts, and then yeah, you just get more and more curious, I suppose. What's it like?
Did you manage to get over on the sort of terrain at all beforehand, or was it pretty much?
So. Yes and no. So you're allowed to recce the trails, but that's only about a third of the route. You're not allowed. Laz is really strong on this. You're not allowed to recce off-route sections, and that's most of it. So John very kindly, the T-Dodger John Kelly, took me at least 3 times. We went on runs in the state park, and he would tell me some things, but he was quite. You know, there are certain ethics to the race. Like, he didn't show me, you know, he wouldn't say there'll be a book there, or but he might hint, okay, from here you may be leaving the trail going, you know, that way roughly. But he didn't show me, you know, the actual route on a map, for example, as in the actual route of the race. I didn't find that out till the sort of afternoon before, like most people. So you can, obviously it's helpful to be there and to run on the trails. That definitely would have helped, but yeah, there's still a lot to learn, and you can't. Yeah, almost every other race in the world you can recce in some way, I suppose, within limitations. But this one, yeah, you're not allowed. So that's quite an interesting conundrum. But yeah, it definitely helps to get there a bit early and get to know it a little.
And how did the reality against expectations? Because like you say, you've dived into all the content. You've probably picked the brains of your friends who have been before. How did the reality live up to it? Was it as bad, or was it
well
worse?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the Briars weren't nearly as bad as you know, the mythical pictures. It's a bit like the Marathon des Sables, isn't it, where all the, you know, the 2 or 3 worst feet ever those pictures get circulated everywhere. So you think if you go Marathon des Sables, you'll lose all your toes. And the Briars had been cut down on Ratjaw, so I was a bit lucky there. But yeah, they weren't anything nearly as bad as you might suspect. And look, we were blessed with good weather. We had some of I think John said it was the best weather he had known on the race. So we didn't have that sort of any miserable rain or fog, which apparently fog is what people fear the most there, because it's going to really interrupt your navigation. It got very cold, maybe like -10, but you know, if you got warm kit, then that's fine. So I didn't mind that. If it's cold and clear, that's perfect for me. So how was it against expectations? Yeah, and in a way, yeah, my big unknown about the navigation, how hard is that bit going to be? And I would say it's not super easy. It's not super hard navigation. It's probably just at the edge of my skills. And especially, yeah, when it gets difficult, of course, is you're on your own in the dark, in the woods. That's where really I came a bit unstuck, and where I'm going to start struggling. So yeah, that was the hard, and I suppose that was about as hard as I imagined, that aspect of it.
Is there an itch needing scratched? Will you go back?
Yes. I would like to. I don't know. Yeah, I won't know I won't. I don't know if I'll get back in, but yeah, I'm frustrated with. I suppose I'm frustrated with the outcome. Well, I'm both pleased and frustrated. But I feel like I could do better. So I will try at least one more time. I mean, we'll probably get onto environmental issues in a bit, but yeah, I don't want to do many flights at all. That was the only flight I did in 4 years. I don't, I certainly won't be flying every year. But maybe I do feel like one more go.
What? It was a brilliant shift for your first time at Barkley. Absolutely phenomenal what you achieved. But the thing is, we learn from our experiences, don't we? And you'll have learned loads that you can take back with you if you do go back. Sorry, when you go back. we should say that. I'm also the topic of food. Topic of food has been in my mind, well, all my life actually. But in the next few while, speaking about ultra marathons and speaking about the spine and some of the things that you've done, is there a food that's been with you throughout that stuck with you, or have you changed? What did you eat at Barkley, for instance?
Yeah, I remember. I think it probably has changed over time, but I remember. So early on, my first kind of record or FKT was running the Southwest Coast Path, and I remember the key ingredient at that time seemed to be custard. And I remember I had a wonderful guy crewing me there, Tom Jones, not that Tom Jones, but an even better Tom Jones. And he would give me, towards the end, he would give me cups full of custard, and it had lumps in the custard. And he would never tell me what the lumps were. But I just got it down me because that's what you got to do, right? And I remember thinking like custard was my secret thing. And then over time, I mean, chocolate's good, isn't it? Chocolate's good. Definitely at the spine race, there's lots of chocolate. But the last 2 or 3 years, what's gone really well, I must admit, I have turned sort of full annoying vegan 2 or 3 years ago. So that does change things a little bit. Like custard is a bit trickier. But what has been really good for me late at Barkley and spine is bagels. And this is partly Renee McGregor's doing. Yeah, bagels with hummus and probably like a bit of rubbery vegan cheese, but like a pickle or something, pickles or pickle. And actually on spines and Pennaway runs and Barkley, they've been really well. It's thins, white bagels, thins, and then put in, I suppose, whatever flavour is going to work for you. But that's been, and I'm giving away all the secrets here. But the on the spine, it was the hummus with jalapeno flavouring in it. John's a fan for that. That was the secret, and I've just given it away. So whoever hears this and does that is gonna win the spine. It's the secret. Yeah.
My initial question is, did you ever find out what the lumps were in the custard? What was it?
Nope. He still won't tell me. So
right.
It could have just been innocent bits of fruit. It could have been like rabbit he'd just caught. And knowing him, more likely that.
And what was it was Keith Dunn, who was obviously the legend on the Twitter over at Barkley. You had a bag of a local takeaway or something like that.
Oh yeah,
over in Barkley.
So, first of all, I've got to fess up again. I did what I found when I travel abroad to races. Yeah, being vegan, I guess I've just learned to relax a little bit on things, because often the stuff that's available in Britain isn't available. And to me, so I mean, to go even further, like I've had two DNFs at races, and the first one was UTMB. It was the first time I was sort of racing as a vegan, and I mean, I don't want to make it sound like excuses, but I underfueled because partly because I was being sort of, I mean, I should have carried more, but partly I was trying to be really ethical, and I underfueled. So I'm a bit more relaxed at races now, and if things aren't available, I will grab, I don't know, a cookie or a chocolate bar that probably isn't or might not be vegan, because to me it's not the end of the world to have an occasional biscuit that's got a bit of butter in. So before the race, John was keen to take me out and experience Southern cuisine. So there's a place called Sonic nearby, and it's a drive-through sort of takeaway, and there wasn't much on the menu I could eat. So I relaxed my sort of stance, and they had these like little cinnamon rolls, with kind of chocolate in. And when I tried, I can't remember whether I'd ordered them or if I tried one of John's, but I was like, oh my goodness. And so my brilliant crew member Jodie did go to Sonic during the race. And I think Jasmine's partner Conrad went as well, because I think he got her some potato tots or something. So they went there at least once and sort of stocked up. And yeah, so I had a little bag of Sonic cinnamon rolls. But when I went up, I was leaving for the 5th loop, and I went up there and I had the bag in my hand as I got my new bib number from Laz. And Laz was sweetly very concerned that I was going to litter. He was obviously unaware that I've run the whole Pennine Way and run the coast to coast collecting litter. But I had to really reassure him. But look, I promise, Laz, I'm not gonna dump the plastic bag anywhere on the course. And so when I returned to camp, not very long after that, I was very keen to show that I still had the paper bag. He didn't really comment, but at least hopefully I earned a bit of trust off him there. But it was very sweet that, of all the things that's going on out there, he's very concerned about a little bit of litter, which is I liked him more for that.
Brilliant. That's quite a good segue, isn't it? Into if we talk about the environment, if we can do that.
Very good segue.
And so thank you for providing that, Damian. Absolutely brilliant. So we know you're a player. And
player. My wife's not listening to this. God.
Let me keep going. We know that
everything you said before the show was off limits.
This is the Patreon bit, right? We know that you're a founding member of the Green Runners. But there we go. I got there eventually. Do you want to say a bit about the Green Runners and how it's important, but also maybe more importantly, how people can get involved?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I've probably discredited any association with the Green Runners by flying to America recently. But yeah, that was my only flight for running in 4 years. So yeah, it's almost exactly a year ago that we founded the Green Runners. There are about maybe 12 of us, including Jasmine Paris and Russell Bentley, Dan Lawson. We were sort of in a WhatsApp group, just we were all people who were runners who were concerned about our wider climate and ecological emergency. And I mean, what Dan Lawson and his wife Charlotte have done with Rerun Clothing is really sort of sound the alarm in the running world that running is part of the problem. And a lot of that is our kit. And also, I suppose, traveling to races is going to be a big impact as well. And then even our diets could be slightly less specific to running, but obviously us runners, we do eat a lot. So running contributes quite a lot to climate breakdown. And then also, what I've seen more recently is climate breakdown is affecting running, because races. I mean, you follow the Spine race. Remember the year before they had to get in a car, ironically, for one section because the forests all the trees were down in a bit of forest and it wasn't seen as safe. And that was from a named storm, and several studies have shown that extreme weather is much more likely to happen because of our changing climate. I've got loads of examples like that. I won't bore you with them all for now, but running is being affected by climate breakdown. And so we were just a group of concerned runners, and then what do we sort of do? And then someone just said, well, why don't we form a club? And it was like, oh yeah, of course. That was AJ, who's a very strong runner. And so we launched, exactly a year ago, I think it was Earth Day. And all it is we got 4 pillars, which is how you move, as in how you travel, how you kit up, how you eat, and how you speak up. And all we're asking of people to become a member is to make a pledge to improve on at least one of those items. So we're definitely not after perfection. We're not all vegans. We're not all people who never fly and only wear secondhand kit. We're not perfect. We're not sort of extreme in that nature. We want everyone. We want everyone on board who cares. So, and to me, the most important thing is speaking up. And there are lots of different ways to do that. So we've got nearly 1,000 members around the world, which has blown us away, really. That's been really, really touching and really wonderful that people want to get involved. And if people do want to get involved, still, just thegreenrunners.com, and it's £2 or £3, which just goes towards the badge and a bit of, I think, a little bit possibly towards the upkeep of the website. But yeah, please come and join. Anyone can join, really. Like, you know, no one's, yeah, we don't expect perfection from people, and no one really can be. So the bigger organization we are, the more influence we can have with making changes. So thanks for mentioning it.
No problem.
No.
And I know that something that's happening this year that I've become aware of, I messaged somebody about at the weekend, is Ben to Ben, and that's from Ben Nevis to Big Ben. I'm not quite sure what direction of travel is. That's not been confirmed to me yet, but it's pretty much it's a relay run for people to take part. So if people do want to get involved with that, do a bit of, use whatever web browser you prefer and find out about the Green Runners and get involved that way. And I know it's also, you mentioned about the birthday. There's the big one coming up, isn't there? There's going to be like a demonstration, isn't there? So
yes. So I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but we're talking on Tuesday, and I'm going to London on Friday. It's this weekend, so I don't know if this comes out too late. But yeah, there's sort of 4 days of protesting and yeah, just trying to make our voices heard. I'll be there for 2 days, and on the Saturday morning we've got a Green Runners specific sort of a bit of a jog at Parliament Square. So yeah, if this does go out in time, anyone who's around, I can't remember if it's 8 or 9 o'clock start, but yeah, keep listening to Green Runner channels, and we'll tell you more. But yeah, to me, that's more important than cutting your own personal sort of footprint, because we've got to, you know, yeah, I feel like we have to get out in the streets and nudge for system change, you know, and make the government hear us. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of people down in London this weekend for obvious
Yeah.
reasons, so I'm sure that's been maybe part of the planning, and a lot of people share, you know, and I think what you said there, Damo, about it those 4 pillars and no being perfect, there'll be very few of us who are perfect, but I think we can all do a little bit. And we spoke with Jasmine about this as well. Do you know, whether it's, okay, there's the trainers that I'm not using anymore, but somebody else could maybe use them rather than them, you know, going to landfill or wherever they go if you dispose of them, you know, in a sensible way. And then it's just spreading the word amongst your own running stable, so to speak, and that those small changes just accumulate and gather awareness. And you know, it's, I think the whole point of being no perfect that you made there very well is something that sides with me, because I'm far too perfect.
Yeah, I think it's so important, because I think it's off-putting. I think that can hold people back from doing anything. And I see it with, because I sort of spent time, yeah, I've done a whole book on this, which came out last year.
Yep.
And I see it with brands and with events and with other runners, that they almost say nothing because it's not perfect yet. And I totally understand that. I'm not sort of having a go at that, but I definitely haven't got all of this right. But it's just too urgent. And I've got kids, and I'm scared about the planet we're passing on to them. So it's just too urgent not to do anything. So I sort of don't mind if I'm not perfect. It's too late. And, you know, to some people, I'm a hypocrite and whatever, because, you know, I did do a flight this year. But I think we've got to make this stuff seem accessible. You know, it's like, it's not just for a special few people who live in the woods and fuel only on rainwater and mushrooms that they've grown themselves. You know, it's not realistic or fair, is it? And there are genuinely books about it. I probably won't be able to quite grab that one in time, but there's one behind me called The Sustainable-ish Guide to Living. And it's, you know, we can't all be 100% sustainable all the time. That's just, no one's going to be, are they? So it's just doing, I suppose part of it is knowing the elephants from the mice, and concentrating on the right areas, really. And then just, you know, doing your best when you can. Not, you know, no one's expecting you to be perfect all the time.
I think that's a great message there. It's about making small changes. If we wait until it's perfect, it's never going to happen. But it's about doing wee things and having the conversation, keeping the conversation rolling, I think, is a really important thing. Sorry, Stephen, I jump in.
I was going to say, John and I'll do our utmost to get this out before the weekend, because that'll get us
definitely.
A wee shove. John's full of adrenaline and whatnot this week, so it's him who does the editing. So that's cool. And also, John, I think we need to sign up to Green Runners as well, personally. So
I have the badge. I have a badge.
You're my favourite, John. I thought it was Stephen. It's you, John.
Yeah,
What a kiss
Stephen.
ass.
Listen, it's not easy being green,
It's
but
just
it's
like-
always worth it, Stephen.
A kiss ass. Okay. Right.
Right, listen,
I shall sign up then.
I'll
because
send you the link,
I
Stephen.
won't buy trainers. I won't buy trainers for the rest
Oh.
of this year.
This is being recorded. Right, okay.
Done.
Well, we're,
I'll buy 20 socks though, because they've all got holes in them.
right.
Oh, they can be repaired. Oh shit, digging a hole.
Well, you know what? No, that's another great segue, because for Damian, we like to ask people that come on the show about their favourite bit of kit. Now, it's whatever bit of kit served you well, or it's just a thing that's your go-to. What's Damian Hall's favourite bit of running kit that you've got?
Well, I mean, there is a particular shoe that's served me pretty well over the last few years, but I'd almost say actually like a buff. I mean, I've got an ever-growing forehead. It seems to get bigger every time I look in the mirror. But genuinely, when around half the year, and my ears stick out a bit as well. So actually, sticking a buff on, it's really nice. Actually, keeps my big forehead warm and tucks my ears in, and makes me look a bit less bold as well. So yeah, I'm quite into buffs. I think Innovate call them rags, because I think buff is a trademark. But yeah, I
That's
like
what we call them, Le Buff Buffs.
Yeah,
buff buffs.
the buff buffs.
I don't know. I've got a
Oh,
Le Buff Buff
yeah.
in my hand right now.
We've got the buff buffs. We've also got sexy buff buffs.
Well, I was going to
Right,
say,
buff
if
buff.
anyone listening is unsure what I mean, just Google Damian Hall in the buff.
That's his
In
only
the-
fans. That's his only
Damian
fans.
Hall in the buff in Bath. So there you go. You can do that. You can do that. So thank you very much. And I think everybody, some people call them rags, some people call them head socks, whatever you want to call them. But yeah,
Head socks.
buffs. Good bit of kit.
Snoods, that's it. That's what footballers say. Snoods. Yeah.
Okay.
Footballers for you.
What about you do a lot of running, a lot of campaigning. How does Damian Hall relax away from all that stuff? Where do you go for calmness?
Yeah. Don't know. I should do more of that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I was chatting to someone at the weekend about meditation, and I kind of thought, well, running's my meditation, really. I think running's how I relax, but that makes me think I should have something else too. Should I have something else too?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Running
Speaking
is
on podcasts is a nice way to relax.
this one's incredibly stressful. I've really hated this one. I would say running's how I relax, really. Yeah.
Cool. I'd agree. Stephen, I've not asked you that question. What's your way to relax? Just while we're wasting Damian's time here, so
just admire my 12 pairs of unboxed trainers that are sitting there.
No.
I'm only joking. No, I don't know. Too often go into a TikTok hole.
Right. Okay.
or a social media hole, and weirdly I get a ticking off from the other half. But actually, it completely zones me out and relaxes me and just chills me out. So that's the golden hour activity. Do you know the golden sort of? Remember you had the golden time at school, and maybe your kids get golden time where they're allowed to bring in a toy or something, on a Friday afternoon because they've earned it by good behaviour all week. So they get golden time. My golden time's like sort of 10:30 till 11:30 at night, where things are quiet and just kind of just go on my phone, get through Twitter, get through Insta, all that kind of caper. And weirdly, that just, you say screen time is not a good thing, seems to chill me out and kind of just go nod off to sleep.
Well, that's what works. That's cool, man. That's absolutely fine.
And of course, running up hills and solitude and all the gratitude stuff as well. But let's not kid everybody on.
Well, hills are tricky. I was just trying to think whether I found social media relaxing. I don't think I do.
No, it depends.
The other thing I do, yeah. But if it does for you, that's great.
But it's usually just looking back at John's achievements on our social media channels. That really gives me joy and pleasure, right to the bottom.
Well, that's why I go. That's why I go and do them. So you've got that opportunity to do that. Anyway,
do it for Stephen. You do it for Stephen.
Okay, listen, we are very, very grateful for you to give us your time, Damien. We've got a couple of questions that we ask every single guest. Steve, I'm going to hand over to you to do the necessary.
First up is our dialect dictionary is awaiting a word from the F1 man himself to get a submission in. So a song. That's next question. A word or phrase or a couple even is allowed that you can throw in our dialect dictionary, Damien.
Have you got the word bimble in there?
No, we haven't got the word
Oh,
bimble. It
brilliant.
isn't in. It's familiar and it's not in.
Good.
Yeah.
Few. Okay, bimble, please. Do you
Define
need
a
it?
bimble.
A leisurely long one.
I love that.
A leisurely.
I have to be in
long one.
lumps, but it's better if it's in lumps. A lumpy bimble is preferable.
And is there an ideal sort of weather window for a bimble? Can it take place in any kind of weather, or is it
Any weather? Yeah, any weather.
Is there a perfect bimble sort of moment in time?
Well, I mean, if I can pick, no, you can do it anytime, any weather.
Okay.
If I can pick my weather, it's going to be cold and clear, cold and sunny.
Cold, clear, and sunny. Okay.
But you can
Bimble.
pick any time.
Yeah, just moving along
Yeah,
quite
I'm del-
efficiently, but without much purpose.
Yeah,
I think, yeah,
easy long run.
I think if anybody else had suggested that word bimble, we would have said, no, sorry, you can't use that. Damian Hall's coming on in a few months and he's going to use that one. So, because that's you're the first person I ever heard use that word, bimble, when I read your first book. So
Dave Turner also uses it a lot. The command centre guy.
In the command centre. Right.
That's one of his favourites.
Well, I must. This is probably a good moment on the most public of platforms to confess I did borrow it from someone, steal it from someone, and that is Holly Rush, who I haven't seen for a while, but she does live semi-locally, and yeah, like I say, is in the Bath Bats. I did steal it off her a few years ago. Thanks, Holly.
That's okay.
Copyright Holly Rush. We'll put that in there.
Bimbo is in. The bees were looking a wee bit slim, so brilliant. That'll be great when they publish.
And then our final biggie, we'll probably think another question, but our final biggie is, are you a music fan, Damien?
Yeah.
And if you are, we're cut. Actually, this will be the first entry into the Buff Collection Volume 5. This will be the first entry into that playlist. We create a playlist for each season. This is the opener of season 5. So, what song is Damian Hall going to launch into La Buff Collection Volume 5?
I'm caught between this and you singing, John, of course. But what I'm going to go for is, what I consider my favourite song, which for quite a long time I listened to every single day. And when I worked in an office in Sydney, Australia, I would put it on. I mean, you're getting more insight here into what an annoying person I really am. Every day at 4 o'clock, I would put it on, whether anyone else wanted it on or not. It's Mr. November by The National. And it so happens I was born in November, so I feel like he's singing about me, but really he's singing about John Kerry. Is it John Kerry, the American politician, I think? But I love that song.
Brilliant, great tune. I know it well. So that's a great one to start off our new playlist. Absolutely fantastic.
Totally.
This has been a fantastic. Sorry, Steve, on you go. You got something you're going to say?
Well, yeah, I've got one last question. Actually, cool. We're maybe going to be catching up with an acquaintance of yours soon, John Kelly, and
never heard of him.
Wondering. You mentioned him earlier as the Tea Dodger, so let's just call him the Tea Dodger. I just wonder if you've got a message for John.
Well, part of me wants to be like really rude and sort of say, stay over that side of the Atlantic and stop coming over here and stealing our records. But then he was really helpful to me when I went over there, and I had to almost say, don't help me. Like, he wanted to pick me up from the airport and I was like, no, I want to hate you a little bit. That would be more helpful to me. He's making it really difficult. So yeah, my message would be, it's purely a personal message. could you try and be a bit less, just be less of a good person so that I could hate you a bit? And I think that would give me more chance to get his Pennine record back and things like that. So yeah, please be a less nice person to me, John.
Okay, if you could fall off a ladder a bit more often. I don't mean that, John.
Too soon. No, that's good. That's good.
The footage of that, it lives long in my memory, and the fact that it was caught as well, and how well he got away with it. So yeah.
Yeah. Ouch.
Ouch indeed. Thank you for that.
He did introduce me to a rattlesnake when we were in Frozen Head on the very first run. There was part of me wondering, whether that was organised and planned, but we both escaped. But yeah, blimey, that ladder.
Yeah.
John, I could imagine John in Frozen Head State Park. John won't go out his back door in the dark to run a wee trail.
This John is talking about.
Not John Kelly. I think he's quite adept at that. Yeah, so we were speaking to Larry Kelly the other week, one of the guys who's on the helps them organising Barkley. And I was like, well, we'll go over sometime to Frozen Head State Park just to experience it. And I'm thinking, there's no way John Cassidy's going to manage this with a lot of counselling. So yeah, just a wee aside.
Larry made it sound very appealing, though. He was talking about big breakfast in a camp and all that sort of stuff. So I'd be fine with that wee bit. As long as we've got loads of floodlights so I can see everything, I'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Damian, this has been honestly a pleasure speaking to you. I've read your books, but it's great to speak to you in person. And thank you also very much for what you're doing with all the Green Runner stuff. I think that's really, really important. So thank you for that. But thank you more importantly for your time today. Stephen, I'll let you say.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure to finally chat to you, Damo. We've been quoting you on our Twitter feed for a wee while, so apologies for that. And thanks for tuning in to some of our previous episodes. We're really privileged that that's the case. And it's been awesome to chat to you. And yeah, like John says, keep speaking up, keep doing what you're doing with regards to the environmental stuff as well. But just keep also just enjoying your long bimbles as much as you do.
Thank you ever so much indeed, and keep up. I've listened to many of your shows, so thank you for the excellent work there. And yeah, if you could get Damian Hill on next, that would be appreciated. Leave that John Kelly chancer off. He sounds useless.
Brilliant.
Oh man, thanks so much, Damo.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Take care.